and welcome to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a production of the Libertarian Party National Committee. Executive producer Dan Fishman, manning the big boards, John Gabso, and of course, I'm your host, Pat Ford. We're down to it, folks. We've just got a handful of days before, well, libertarians will get the irony of this, the most important election in our lifetimes. And yet, in so many ways, when you get beyond the nonsense that's spewed by the duopoly, the sort of frauds that are routinely perpetuated and perpetrated upon the American voter, in many ways, given the crisis that is facing our nation, as well as COVID, this is perhaps the most important election, at least in this generation. I've had the privilege throughout this entire election period of broadcasting through the Libertarian Party, and I've met an astonishing group of what we would call ground floor or down ballot candidates, folks running for everything from, well, a transportation commissionership to mayors, to town council, to water board, to, well, state senate, state representative, congressman. And of course, joining us tonight is one of the more astounding stories this year. He's joining us from the hills, if you will, of Arkansas. Ricky Dale Harrington is the Libertarian nominee for the United States Senate from the great state of Arkansas. And what's allowed him to shine, to show off his talents, to propel the libertarian message forward is just one of those just circumstances that happen. A Democrat chose not to, if you will, challenge the reign, and I use that word intentionally, of an individual. I won't grace him with the term gentleman, Senator Cotton, who, astoundingly enough, has his eyes on the presidency, despite his issues with racism and, well, his issues. But tonight's all about Ricky Dale Harrington and how he's taken this opportunity, if you will, that's been handed him by the fates and run with it and propelled himself really to the upper limits of Arkansas politics, and as a result has the potential to make an impact on the national scene. Welcome back, if you will, to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Ricky Dale Harrington. Thanks for joining us again tonight.
Thank you for having me, Mr. Ford.
It's been quite it was just a few short months ago that you joined us, and yet it's been quite a trip, hasn't it, for the last 12 weeks of your life. First of all, congratulations. You know, it's opportunity happens, and very often we're defined as individuals with how we take that opportunity and capitalize on it, whether it be personal growth, family, job issues, or in this case, the opportunity, as I mentioned, to really to stand apart from the crowd and go right after the duopoly one-on-one. How are you feeling? Are you tired, exhausted, happy, optimistic? Give us a sense of where Ricky Dale Harrington is right now.
Well, a bit of all of those, and definitely to what you said earlier about opportunities. I live by this German proverb. It says there are three things that leave you and never come back: time, your words, and opportunity. And so I had to make the most of every opportunity that came across me. And, you know, the things that we say, we have to be very careful, because once it's out there for everyone to have, and you can never take it back. And, you know, time, it marches forward. And so I always keep that proverb in the forefront of my everyday life. And we just have a couple of days left, a final push to get the message out to all Arkansans. And I think we have a great opportunity, one that hasn't been afforded to many in our party. And, you know, sometimes things are just up to the fate, so to speak, regarding that. But when it comes to me, every day I'm trying to do what I need to do for today, and hopefully able to build off of that tomorrow.
Excellent. Now I'm going to open up with a question, and I'm going to repeat this question at the end of our presentation here, because I think this is an issue for you, and literally it's an issue for every candidate out there on a Friday night before a Tuesday election. So it is Friday night somewhere, depending where you are. It's 5 o'clock somewhere right here in the East Coast. Of course, it's a little past 9:30 or so. There's a couple days left where you can still make an impact. Four of them: Monday, Tuesday. I'm sorry, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, and Tuesday. So whether folks be local or folks from around the Libertarian universe who might be listening now or listen to this show tomorrow, how can they help your campaign in these waning days of the election?
Well, number one, if you have any relatives in Arkansas, inform them of their choices that they have on the ballot. Point them to where they can find information about, myself, the campaign, and the debate or the interview. Some of my friends call it an interview. Point them to that so they can see for themselves and see. Um, not all libertarians, as this, it's a stereotype for libertarians that we don't care about anybody, and it's one that I've had to fight against in my campaign. But I'm okay with that because I like having hard conversations with people. It doesn't bother me at all. But whenever you're having those hard conversations, you don't have to be mean spirited about it. And the point of having a conversation is coming to an agreement. But telling your family members, telling them where to get information. We have some volunteer forms set up, and we have some phone banking going on. And my team, they can help those who would like to help out with that and point them in the right direction.
Excellent, excellent. And you're right. Your entire life you've engaged in difficult conversations, and what leaps out when you look at your resume is, of course, the fact that you've ministered to folks who are facing, in many cases, the ultimate challenge, and that is having been imprisoned um, for their fault or not. The conversation, that's one that's a flexible conversation, but you faced some of the most challenging issues in life head on in ministering to folks who are incarcerated. How has that prepared you and impacted you in your life in politics?
Well, one thing that I was taught whenever I first started by some of my fellow compatriots in the prison system was not to take anything personally. It's all business, and that went a long way for me. I never really took things personally because, or for obvious reasons. Being I hate to bring this up, but being a black man growing up in Northeast Texas, and there's some pockets of Northeast Texas that are hairy um, for black people, and just dealing with mean spirited people in that arena. So you have to develop some thick skin. But working in the prison system, whenever my fellow senior chaplain, we were dealing with some difficult individuals in the prison, and they told me, well, these guys are kind of pent up in here, and sometimes pestering you is their only avenue out. And that was a learning experience, how not to take things personally. It's really, at the end of the day, just business.
Aren't folks, particularly at a time when we're faced with this challenge, this let's say there's so many life challenges you can feel, you can touch, you can see, you can adapt to. They're linear in a sense that if you have a challenge and you do X, then there's a real strong potential Y will occur. When you have this unseen illness surrounding us or not, depending on who you speak to and where you are in the country, at what point you are in your life, it's so amorphous, so vague, yet always present. How much of people's just frustration right now is because of that and because of a government that is in so many ways been entrusted with so much power and yet is clearly undeserving of it?
Well, I think first off, this is the first time a lot of us have seen something like this at such a scale. In 2008, 2009, there was the H1N1 um, the swine flu, and that was I remember that. I remember some of the price gouging that cheaper than dirt did on gas masks and ammunition. That's probably why I remember it so strongly. But this is, we have to take a look at who we are as a people and what type of things are in our culture and how we react to certain situations. We're kind of an instant gratification, let's get things fixed quickly and then move on to the next thing type of people. And this virus, however, it is really going. It's lingering for longer than we probably most of us were thinking. That it wouldn't last as long, though some of the scientists said it might last a year, it might last a year and a half, or they weren't sure. It's the first time we face something like this, and there's just been so many different voices, and people are looking for something to trust in. Okay, if this is going to be the long haul, how are we going to deal with this and prepare for the long haul, or is it not? And so that's just the hard part about it is we're used to things moving along quickly. We're not used to dealing with this type of. I mean, it's affecting everybody all over the world, and that's probably the struggle. A lot of people are getting cabin fever. So, I mean, I can understand how people are feeling. It's a bad situation for everyone.
And as Americans, we're so used to challenges being like this met and faced and confronted and dealt with in the space of an hour and 45-minute movie. Because by then, somehow, the miracle cure has been found. The nuclear bomb that was supposed to take out whatever city has been delivered safely into outer space. For many of us, life is nothing more than an action movie. And yet the reality of it is that we're facing something existential like this that, we're not prepared for. And in your opinion, as someone who's dealt with interpersonal issues, challenged people in some of the worst situations imaginable, is having lost so much of our self-sufficiency, our ability to act as an individual to government and to society, which tends to want to prop you up in my humble opinion, if you will, for the sake of aggregating power. Has that left us at a particular disadvantage at this moment in our history where personal strength is so important?
Well, it's it's a sticky situation that we have to navigate because we are individuals. We should be self-sufficient, but we live in such a hyper interconnected society now. If you have the money, you can be anywhere in the world in 24 hours. And that's saying a lot, especially whenever we're dealing with a pandemic, and it's hard to kind of track those things if you have people moving freely like that. So we just have to find the balance between, yes, I understand I'm individual and the government shouldn't cross this line right here. And then even when the circumstances are right, if you cross that line, you better walk back over it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you know, we're dealing with this pandemic here. We don't know what's real. We don't know what the truth is because the two parties are fighting over this election and using this tragedy here as a way to come out on top of this election, and that just it just shows how sick some thinking is in Washington on both parts, on any part. If anybody is thinking about this, not in the scope of how do we help people, but how do we gain more power, and we definitely know that um, when people get power, it's hard for them to set it down.
Right.
There's a lot of there's a huge temptation that comes with it, and we really need to be cultivating integrity because I think that integrity is how we find that balance of doing the right thing, of respecting individual rights, and also understanding that there's times whenever we have to come together when we are facing certain issues.
I would agree with that 100%. We're talking here in Rhode Island in the last few days about something called shared sacrifice. And for those folks who become alarmed at a libertarian program that somehow reeks of the collective, it doesn't. It's really an extension of why so many libertarians engage in activism, those folks who need help, because ultimately it is the voluntary association between individuals in times of trouble that I believe plays to the strengths of the individual and allows their talents to shine and to help others, so that we don't need an overriding, overly forceful, overly intrusive government. Folks, if you're just joining us right now, Ricky Dale Harrington, he is running for the United States Senate from the great state of Arkansas. Arkansans, I hope I pronounced that correctly, have joy, if you will, now, because when you look at the opponents and you look at the history of the opponent, and, well, let's just say some of those characteristics that we spoke about, he is running on a one-on-one basis, and it has given him a unique opportunity, if you will, to emerge from the oppression of the duopoly and really advocate, display his talents, engage in conversations. Now, of course, in the run-up to the show, we were chatting for a few minutes. There was a conversation you recently had. It was a one-way conversation. So I guess, as you mentioned it, your friends are referring it to as the interview. To the eternal credit of Arkansas Public Television, who John and I were doing a little research before, is apparently uniquely open to allowing independent candidates from outside the duopoly to shine and to participate. They decided to hold an interview with you that should have been a conversation, that should have been a debate, despite the fact that a national figure from their home state decided that he was, I don't know, above it. What? Give us the story, the backstory. How did this all come together?
Well, this has been known for several months. When PBS sent out info that they were planning on having the debates, and Senator Cotton's team didn't respond at the time. And then, whenever they had asked us to send in the documents, RSVPing that we were going to be there, he said that it was based off the precedent from Mark Pryor not debating the third party candidate. He said if it was a major party candidate, he would debate, but there's that. But he made a calculated mistake in not showing up to that debate. And then the very next day, he showed up to the exact same location we were at and took some photos of the campus and took some photos with pharmacists. All of a sudden now he cares about drug prices. Been in office for 6 years and you haven't done anything about this issue, and all of a sudden now that you care about it, I don't like to play those type of games. I'm just straightforward type of guy.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to try to get things done and help people, but it just looks bad. For me as a man, I just wouldn't have done something like that, because I guess I got a little bit more pride in myself,
Mm-hmm.
that I value things that men stand on rather than some of these little political games that they like to play. If he's a tough guy, come look me in my face and let's talk about stuff. Look the people of Arkansas in the face and let's talk about it. But go ahead, play that politic, play that game like that. We'll see if it bites you on Tuesday.
Yeah, and we don't on this show often talk about the competition, but it's notable here because let's just say, having spoken in public countless times, and I think it'd be interested in your reaction to this, Ricky Dale. Very often in public settings, when people make a gaffe, it's actually because they're under pressure and they're in the spotlight. It's often a very accurate representation of how they actually think. When someone engages in the type of racist behavior that Mr. Cotton has, it's not out of nowhere. It's sort of like when someone's had a run over a particular issue. Usually that means they did it about 20 times and they finally got caught. In this case, Mr. Cotton's words stand by his own. We won't dignify them by repeating them here. But at the same time, this individual is allegedly contemplating a run for the presidency. And when he should have been talking to you, it sounds like you should have been up in New Hampshire kind of following him around, because he seems to be spending more time outside of Arkansas than he does in. And I bring this up in the context of the campaign. How do Arkansasians, how do folks from Arkansas, Arkansans, thank you. How do folks react to that? I've only been down there a few times, but it seems like it's much like Rhode Island where I live, it's a tribal place where it's a community unto its own, and Arkansans look after Arkansans, and Arkansans look to Arkansans to behave as men.
Yes. On the ground here, meeting with people and talking with people, they're not happy about that. They're not happy about him not showing up and talking to them. And especially, he has not had a public event since February of 2017. He had an event today. It was put on by the Republican Party of Arkansas, and there was a certain number of people that can show up. And then there were some people who were denied a ticket to go to the event as well. So if you have a reserved event in a safe environment, apart for, and the public can't go there to ask you questions, why are you in office? Why are you running for office, especially whenever we have a representative democracy? So if anybody is paying attention, people, those guys are only interested in power. They're not interested in representing the people. They're not interested in trying to help out the people. And I'll say this right here. I think, and I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court nomination here. I think that in 2016, whenever President Obama put forward his nomination for the Supreme Court, that they should have held hearings, held a vote to confirm or not to confirm Merrick Garland.
Mm-hmm.
And President Trump is within his constitutional powers to do the same. But for the Republican Party to do what they just did, after in 2016 saying, no, we're going to let the new president nominate the justice, but just now they pushed it through. It's not about integrity. It's not about doing the right thing. It's all about power. And hopefully people that are even-handed, level-headed, will see that. We'll see that the people that are in Washington right now are only concerned about power. They're not concerned about a representative democracy or trying to help the people or bring their voice to our government. Mm-hmm. And we have to wake up to that, and we have to make big changes by not voting for the same people who do the same things over and over again. And every 2 or 4 years, we think that it's time to switch and let the other side do it when, well, they're pretty much on the same team and playing all of us.
Absolutely. I think one of the things I'm proudest about being a member of the Libertarian Party is the fact that we are the party of principle. And unlike, shockingly, this go-around, where effectively the Republicans and Democrats really had no platform per se, one literally none, one sort of, we can point proudly to our efforts every 2 years at reviewing and enacting a platform that is based on our belief system. And for these folks, that's become sort of a shop-worn, anachronistic event that really has no quote-unquote relevance in the digital world. But if one, in fact, is not willing to, if you will, elucidate one's beliefs and put them down in writing and present them to people, as both the Democratic Party, Republican Party nationally have failed to do, and in the case of Mr. Cotton, who's clearly failed to speak to his personal truths, one realizes that, as Jerry Seinfeld said, we're rooting for laundry. That is really nothing more than accumulation of power. Now let's talk about issues for a couple minutes. Now that the campaign is again in its waning days, what issues have you found, particularly as the COVID crisis has worn on and on and on? What issues are resonating with Arkansans?
Well, healthcare is definitely resonating with Arkansans and the economy, and as well as criminal justice. But the healthcare and economy are the top two things, I would say. People lost their jobs, and in the current system we have, people's health care is attached to their jobs or their employment. And whenever you get laid off or you're furloughed or businesses just close their doors because of what's going on and, or the mandates that have been set forth by governors, how are they going to take care of themselves if they get sick? And so we have to come to this realization that yes, we have the principles that we have, but they should also be rooted in caring for other individuals. I mean, that should be the basis of how we do everything. And I know that whenever we talk about certain things, we have to find common ground with those who don't believe the way that we believe. And we have to try to explain some of the libertarian ideals that may not, if we hear something a certain way, we recognize what you're talking about. But if we say things the way that you and I would talk about it, if we're talking about economic issues, or if we're talking about occupational licensing reform, most people are not up and up on those type of things.
Mhm.
But if you put it in a way that people understand, you'd find them to be more agreeable to it. But first, you gotta recognize who your audience is and recognize the type of language that they speak, and then we can convey ideas and find common ground. Uh, Case in point, I was at an event and I was talking about occupational licensing, and I was telling the audience there that just think of this. Let's say you're very good at cutting hair and you cut all your friends' hair and you do it for free because you like doing it. But the moment you charge somebody $5, you're a criminal. That's something that people can understand whenever you talk about occupational licensing and how it's something that's in the way from people being able to make money for themselves. I mean, that's a pretty much libertarian idea right there.
Mhm.
But you gotta meet people where they are and share the idea from a perspective that they would understand. And I think that once we start doing things like that, we'll see a lot of people just are already libertarian, so to speak.
Mhm. Most of us are libertarians. We just need to discover our inner libertarian. That's why we who are already found ourselves, if you will, on the path of truth and righteousness, have got to find let's just say, a peaceful way, a cooperative way of to have that conversation, plant that seed, as Larry Sharp often says, to do it in a way that encourages growth and does not create animosity or bitterness, because one is seen to be as discriminatory towards the person's current views. No, it's a very important point. And when folks ask me, and I live in a very blue state, Rhode Island, why are you running? Why do you have a president running? She's not going to win. Well, and I said, first of all, that's it's disappointing that when you talk about the quote unquote lesser of two evils argument, you really are allowing other people to make your decisions for you. And of course, they're upset by that, and they say, I do not. And I said, well, no. If you if simply you're basing it on what the market's expectations or what people's expectations are going to win, you are looking to other people and you are reflecting their judgment. At the same time, what's so important about a race that you're engaged in is the pulpit that you've managed to, by again the power and the strength of your character, have been able to present to people who have never heard of the Libertarian Party, who very often you're giving voice to, if you will, sort of the thoughts in the back of their mind about what's wrong with society today, what's wrong with politics, and they haven't met a libertarian before, or they haven't seen someone like yourself in a powerful public position who's a libertarian and who's able to give voice to that sort of loose jumble of thoughts that they're trying to put together. And all of a sudden they say to themselves after listening to you speak that that's what I've been trying to put a handle on. That's what I've been trying to figure out, why I should respect the rights of the ultimate individual, why I own myself, and why I'm capable of making my own decisions, and why I trust myself as opposed to other people making decisions for me. That is so fundamental to libertarians campaigning right now, win or lose, that we provide people with an opportunity to gain firsthand knowledge of our philosophy. And the single biggest success of all the libertarian candidacies of the last 2 years, the last cycle and this one, is that on a nationwide level, candidates like yourself and so many other candidates have done such a wonderful job of presenting those views, as you mentioned, in the ordinary parlance of the day, the language of the day, in a way that will work with their audience, because you are part of their audience. You are part of their community. And that's, win or lose, that's why I applaud down ballot candidates. And that's why I applaud our presidential and vice presidential candidates, because of their commitment to delivering that message. How has, in a state like our, and I've only been down a few times, and, and I've spent quality time in Hoke, Arkansas, the home of some guy named William Jefferson Clinton. I fully agree with one thing he ever said, and that it is the economy stupid. And that whole notion of the war room dedicating itself to putting issues in front of people that are important to them. How has the message been received?
Well, it's been received. I can't put it into words. The amount of support that the campaign has received in the past, 2-3 months. And I'd like to go ahead and say this right now. I'm very grateful to the team that has come on board and helped out the campaign. There's a lot of people that have volunteered. My campaign manager has had some sleepless nights, and I'm grateful that he's been there with me. My treasurer has been there with me since day one, and I'm grateful for him. And I just never thought I would be in the situation that I am in right now. It was just one of those kind of call to action moments, and I decided to stand up on it and walk and try to get the message out there. And I'm just flabbergasted that what was going to be a 4-way race is now just a 2-way race, a historical race right now. And it's all very humbling.
I don't believe in coincidences. I don't believe in chance. I don't believe in accidents. You were meant to do this, and you are. We've only got a couple minutes left. I'd love, as I've told you so many times, I'd love you to engage in some shameless self-promotion. And as I mentioned in the early moments of the show, talk about how folks, and by the way, this is a lesson, regardless of what candidate you are following, regardless of what candidate you happen to be maybe locally supporting, you can do this for Ricky, or you can do this for any one of the hundreds of candidates that are running for libertarian positions around the nation. And in doing so, as I've appealed to you so many times in the past, folks, just leave it on the field. Whatever you got for the next 72 hours or so, just find an extra way to stretch, find an extra way to give of yourself in a manner that's, I think, celebrates candidates like Ricky Dale Harrington, that celebrates Don Rainwaters in the world, that celebrates Kara Schultz. There's so many great candidates. Let's celebrate all of them, but every one of us in the movement, in the philosophy, in the party, just stretching a little bit extra. So take it away, Ricky.
Now, before I do a shameless self-promotion, I'd like to go ahead and name drop some people.
Go ahead.
I'd like to thank Mr. Sharp, Larry Sharp. That was one of the first interviews I had in the libertarian circles, and I appreciate you, sir, for lifting up the down ballot candidates. I'd like to thank Todd, the Libertarian in Chief, Richard from Oklahoma, Shane from Georgia. There's so many people that have supported me on Twitter and getting that message out there. Mr. Manzo, I hope I'm pronouncing your name right. I appreciate you. Joe and Spike. Joe came down, had an event with us in August, and Spike was down last weekend. I appreciate y'all's sacrifice to come down and help build this up here. I wouldn't have been able to do without you. And some of the libertarians that are not candidates, but members of this party and still do a lot of work. You help out with campaigns. You're working full time and you're campaigning full time. That's the typical libertarian campaign. And you got things going on with your families and you still find time to help out the candidates. And from me, I want to extend my appreciation for all that work and saying that I wouldn't be in my position that I'm in right now. This race is a lot closer than people think. There might be some unexpected occurrences happening on Tuesday. And it wouldn't have been possible without my brothers and sisters in the party, not the coalition that we've built here in Arkansas. I appreciate the support that I've received from Arkansans. And I said it before and I'll say it again. My whole calling in life has been to help people, and this would be the greatest honor to serve the people of Arkansas in the Senate and to try to do my best to represent them in the federal government. That's what this is all about. It's not about trying to get power for myself. It's not trying to get power for the party, but to make sure that this government that was started by the people in response to tyranny continues to be that country that will stand in the face of tyranny, that will root it out. Even though it may sprout itself up again, we are constantly fighting to root out authoritarianism, to root out inequality, to root out all forms of hatred, and move to a form of government that actually is what it claims to be on paper. And we need more libertarians serving in our government. The whole purpose of having a libertarian in your government is to make sure that that government upholds its end of the bargain, that it upholds and that it is limited by the Bill of Rights, our constitutional rights. And so if you send me to Washington, I'm going to give you my word. I'm going to do the right thing. I give you my word. You won't have to worry about me not coming to see you half of my term as a senator. I give you my word that I will use the influence and authority of that office to build up the people of Arkansas.
I can't possibly add a single thing to that. Thank you. I'll close this out with just a couple of quick programming notes. This show will continue after the election on Tuesday at a slightly later time on Friday evenings at 9 o'clock. I'm hoping that Kara Schultz can join me next week and we'll talk about the elections. We're going to have a variety of the folks who've been here before rejoin us and talk about their candidacies if they're so willing. And we're going to continue the mission here, which is to find a way to fulfill the exact vision that Arkansas Senate Libertarian nominee, Ricky Dale Harrington, just spoke to so beautifully. Folks, you've been listening to An Hour with the Candidates on LPTV, Libertarian Party Television, a project, if you will, of the Libertarian National Committee. Dan Fishman, executive producer, manning the big boards now going forward. John Gapso. My name is Pat Ford. I am proud to be the chairman of the Libertarian Party of Rhode Island, as well as having been the campaign coordinator for Rhode Island for Joe Jorgensen. I wish all candidates nothing but the best. I wish them both safety and energy in the coming days to just, again, regardless of whether you're a volunteer or the candidate itself, to extend that one extra little bit of effort, capitalizing on the opportunities, yes, the opportunities that exist for us as libertarians in this nation right now while we face such challenges. God bless all of you, and we'll see you next Friday night, 9 o'clock Eastern Time, here on An Hour with the Candidates. Thank you.